What's up, everybody? Hey, Tom Laird here, host of the Advice from a Call Center Geek podcast and founder of Expivia. For exceptional contact center outsourcing, trust Expivia. We're fully AI-driven, as all of you know, and can handle voice, email, chat, and all of your digital channels. Our 600-seat USA contact center is expert in healthcare, financial services, insurance, tech support, retail, and more. Experts on the NICE CX1 platform, we ensure seamless customer experiences. DM me or visit expiviausa.com for more.
This is Advice from a Call Center Geek, a weekly podcast with a focus on all things call center. We'll cover it all from call center operations, hiring, culture, technology, and education. We're here to give you actionable items to improve the quality of yours and your customers' experience. This is an evolving industry with creative minds and ambitious people like this guy. Not only is his passion call center operations, but he's our host. He's the CEO of Expivia Interaction Marketing Group and the Call Center Geek himself, Tom Laird.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the call center contact center podcast, where we try to give you some actionable items to take back in your contact center, improve the overall quality, improve the agent experience, hopefully improve your customer experience as well. My name is Tom Laird. I'm the CEO of Expivia Interaction Marketing. Expivia is a 600-seat call center outsourcer located here in Erie, Pennsylvania. How's everybody doing? We're going to try something a little bit new today with the podcast. We're just going to go Facebook Live, do the podcast. I'll throw the audio onto the site, and then obviously you guys know I chop up these videos and hopefully create some kind of smaller content as well for those of you who don't have a ton of time to listen to this whole thing. So hopefully this is a kind of a cool way of doing this, just trying to keep things fresh, I guess. Okay, so I think this is a cool episode, and we've done this a couple years ago, and I think it's time things that are actually happening in my contact center, things that I'm dealing with kind of in real life, coming back and it just kind of spurs things to say, hey, I think that this could help a lot of other people here too. So let's do a podcast on it. And this is kind of dealing with confrontation in your contact center, right? A lot of times we have issues that will arise when you're dealing with a lot of people, right? So, hundreds of people, or even if you have a call center of 20 people or 10 people, a lot of different personalities, a lot of ways that people can rub on somebody the wrong way or just say something wrong that maybe spurs something. Same thing with how do we deal with reps that maybe are underperforming and having those kind of conversations. But, I don't want to make this a coaching session. This really, I want to make a, when things go wrong, right? When you do have a rep that's maybe having an issue with a supervisor, how do we deal with those confrontations, those conflicts? And I guess even maybe more importantly, how do we avoid them in the first place, right? So there's kind of 5 things that we kind of always look at and I kind of reference back to if we ever see like an uptick, right? An uptick of maybe there's some issues kind of happening or boiling over on a team. So I want to kind of hopefully talk to you about some of those today, and hopefully this can at least spur some thoughts in your head of how you can avoid these. But when they do happen, what should you do? Like, what is your policy? What is your procedure when things don't go right? Because again, when you're dealing with a lot of people, things don't always go perfectly, right? Okay, so the number one thing I think is very basic, right? And it's supervisor, and we call them supervisors. I know some of you guys use team leads, some of you just call center managers. But for us, it's basically the person. I'm defining a supervisor as basically having 15 to maybe 20 people right under them, managing, supervising them. So the number one thing again is supervisor respect, right? Have you done everything you can to make stars out of your middle management, right? I have found that as your middle management goes, your contact center goes. If you have really, really strong supervision and management, right, it's going to take so much pain away from the call center manager, the person that's overseeing everything, right? So your time as a leader of your contact center should not be spent looking at stats of an individual rep or talking to this rep and doing one-on-ones with reps. I think your time should be spent on doing that with the supervisors, with those guys, right? Making them stars, right? And for us, we do ask our middle management, our supervisors, to do a little bit more, to know a little bit more, make sure that they are on time and maybe a little bit early for everything. They need to be experts on the program. We try to make sure that if we have a new program that comes in or a new client, again, we're a BPO, different clients are coming all the time, that we want to do some training sessions on this before we go in with the reps, right? So that, again, our supervisors, they might not know the total ins and outs of it, but they're going to be there to guide, and they're always going to be kind of one step ahead of the rep. And I think that if they're doing that and they're consistently showing that they're assisting and they're helping, and that the rep can gain something from them, right? It's kind of that kind of servitude leadership, right? Where that management person is always trying to help, but they also know more, and they're doing a little bit more than the rep, right? Again, from maybe how they're dressed, and I know we can talk about dress code, but how they're dressed, how they speak. There needs to be a little bit of differentiation, I think, in the type of person, right? So the other thing with that, with the respect thing, is I'm not saying that you can't be friends with the reps, right? I know that this gets into a touchy subject and I get a lot of disagreement, but I think it just becomes more difficult when a supervisor is kind of best friends with their team, right? So maybe like going out on Friday and Saturday nights, and I'm not saying you can't go to a party or picnic. And again, this is a little bit different from personality. This is just my opinion. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but we try to have them at least understand that there needs to be a little bit of a line, right, between the two roles, because I think it helps the agent more when that line is there. So really, the other thing too, like, do you have a management training program, right? We have a couple of podcasts that are on management training. I think that's really important. The biggest mistake you can do is just promote, right, and put that person into a supervisory role without any type of training. It's a different role. It's totally different. The things that they're going to have to deal with are different. So make sure that you're kind of looking at that. Okay. I think number 2, right, from a confrontation standpoint is really understanding expectations and consequences, right? So when we do a week of kind of Expivia training for all new hires before we talk about any programs. And one of the things we do is we do talk about the expectations, right? So, being on time for breaks, being on time for lunch, right? That's not to be a jerk, but we're in a contact center where everything is forecasted out, right, to the 15-minute interval, right? And if we have breaks that are just consistently going longer, it throws everything out of whack, right? So it's not to be a jerk. It's not to be an authoritarian, right? I can't oversay that word. But it's really to just have this thing be managed properly, right? So I think those expectations are really important. So, what is the, understanding all the policies and procedures? I guess that's the biggest thing. You want to make sure then that there is that expectation. And then the word consequence is brutal to me. I don't really like it. I don't really know a better word for it, but what's going to happen if kind of that pact that you guys have that we agree to is broken, right? Because something has to happen. Is it a suspension? Is it a write-up? Is it, how do you do it in your organization, right? But having them understand, if you do X or if you don't do X, Y is going to happen, right? And it's stated ahead of time, right? We've found the best way, because everybody's like, yeah, I kind of get it. We talked about it. The last thing that you want, right, is to have your HR staff, to have you as a leader, be the judge and jury and have everything be subjective when something happens, right? That is a recipe for disaster, because then favoritism comes in. There's a lot of issues then that can arise with that. So making sure, right, that you have expectations, you understand that everyone understands we're on the same page with the consequences. You are not making subjective decisions, when something goes wrong, because again, that's going to cause you a lot of issues. So we call it progressive discipline, right? It sounds terrible. There needs to be better words for this, but basically it's really everything that if this happens, this is exactly what's going to happen. And we test that. Like, that's part of our training, right? So again, there can be no surprises with what's going to happen, and you're treating everybody the same. There's no favoritism, right? There's really no really give or take with that, and everybody kind of understands. I think that's a really important piece of this. All right, so let's talk about when things actually do go wrong, right? So there's an issue, right? Rep says something on Slack. Maybe they're in-house. They say something inappropriate to the supervisor. Tell them to go F themselves, right? Something like that happens, right? So the first thing is we can't let the situations, linger, right? So a lot of people, right? And you got to know your personality, right? Are you just that non-confrontational type of person, right? Where you might just think, oh, please go away. Please just let it go away, right? That's the worst, right? You almost got to rip the Band-Aid off, right? And so when we have incidents like this, the number one thing is you don't know what happened, right? You're hearing from all these different sources of what happened. So the first thing is call a timeout. Send the associate home for the day. Whether you want to pay him, whether you're not, that's up to you, right? So many bad decisions get made on spur of the judgment on things that we think we've heard or how we think things really planned out or happened, right? You don't want to do that. Send the rep home. Talk to your supervisor, talk to your management. For me, we put so much training into our middle management that a lot of times I will tend to lean and have their back, right? Unless it's been something egregious that they did wrong, right? I'm going into it a little bit jaded, and I'll be perfectly honest, because of all the things that we've done and the track record I have with this person. But I'm going to get HR is going to get statements from the supervisor. She's going to talk to anybody that happened around it. If this is a big incident, right? We're going to have a Zoom call with that person at home after they've had a time to relax and chill, kind of get their statement, right? And then talk about it. Be nice and cool and calm, right? And really try to figure out what happened. And then, what should be the issues that arise or what are the consequences, for either one, right? Of what really happened, right? So again, the call center, everybody has opinions and everybody thinks they hear things. You got to be careful and just really sort through and do everything really methodical and take your time of when bigger incidents happen, when there's something that happens between a rep and a supervisor or a rep and a rep, right? Where, we got to take that time out, take that break, send people home, right? And then really think it through. So don't let it linger, right? And then be methodical with it, as you're going through from an HR standpoint or from a management standpoint. All right. The other, piece of this is to really get to know your associates. And again, I'm not saying we're going out and we're having drinks on Friday night every Friday, right? But understand, do they have kids? What are their big concerns, right? Is childcare an issue? Is Jimmy's birthday going to be next week? You get to know them at least on a relatively personal level, right? Especially from a supervisory standpoint. I don't think that it should be all business, right? Just log in, your handle time's here, right? You have to be a person with this. Again, these are all people we're dealing with. We're all dealing with different personalities. And I think when you take the time to do some one-on-ones and get to know them and you can joke with them, right? You again, that goes back to number one, you're building that respect level, right? And the power of me going on Slack and being like, hey, Susie rep, how was Tim's birthday on Saturday? He's 10 years old. I remember when he was just 5 in those pictures you sent. The power that has is really amazing. And it really puts people, I think, in a way that does gain respect. And your organization it's a cultural aspect when you can have that happen. So I think that's really important, as well. And then, kind of one of the other things is that we don't think about, and this is something that a long time ago I read. So this really isn't me. But one of the biggest ways that confrontation and cultural rifts can happen in your contact center is that peers are not managing their peer relationships properly. So how a supervisor talks to a supervisor, even if they're joking or kidding, right? All the reps, all the associates, they pick up on that, right? If a supervisor doesn't like another supervisor and they start to chirp, right? Even maybe to another supervisor, reps hear everything. If they're talking to their team, right? That's going to totally denigrate that one supervisor, right? And it's going to cause a lot of issues and a rift, right? So we actually, kind of train and educate that and at least make them aware, right? From a management standpoint, how we talk to each other, right? What is appropriate conversations? And understanding that if we don't have anything nice to say about somebody, that we just kind of let it go, talk to me. Maybe we'll put you guys in a little bit different area, right? But it's a really important impact, when you have, the management and how they speak to each other. That's such a huge cultural piece, right? Because if you're allowing somebody in the reps here, a supervisor constantly getting trashed, they're going to think, well, they could be doing that to me, right? And you don't think about it because it's peer versus peer. It's not like they're saying it to somebody that they're managing. So that's a huge piece of this too. Is how do I talk? Like, I never swear. I really don't yell ever, right? So there's no reason, right, that if I'm treating you guys like that you shouldn't be treating your peers, treating your reps like that, right? And that's kind of a top-down cultural aspect thing, right? So understand that your personality is going to have a big impact in that, right? And that kind of goes again with the how are you talking to your peers, or how are you talking to the people that are your direct reports that are dealing with the reps. So those are some of the things that I think are helpful to me. So again, the respect that your middle management has, have you given them every tool that they can possibly have to be successful, to be respected, right? Are they just a little bit better meaning more prepared, ready for the day, always have the answer, right? Or can find the answer. They need to be a little bit of I say a little bit harder worker than their agents, right? There's that respect level that totally gets built. Number two, understanding consequences and the expectations around those, right? Making sure that everything is kind of scoped out ahead of time, right? You do not want to be the judge, the jury, making subjective decisions on a rep or on things that are happening when that should all be scoped out. Number three is don't let the situation linger, right? And be very methodical with any issues that then come about, right? Diffuse the situation as quickly as you can, and then try to get as many pieces of input as you possibly can. All right. Number four is I think you need to know your associates, right? A supervisor needs to really know their associates, understand what makes them tick. Again, that goes back to the supervisor respect. And then really from a cultural aspect, understanding how you're talking to each other, how you're talking peer to peer. All that stuff I think can really play it lays the foundation culturally, and it also will just take away so many issues, right? When you're dealing with so many people in a contact center environment. So again, that's kind of what I got for you guys today. I hope that helps. I think it's been something that, again, every once in a while I go back and even look at the book, at the Advice from a Call Center Geek 3.0, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we haven't talked about this in a really long time. And again, not that things have been going on in my contact center, but we've just been growing so much that, a lot of new people are coming on board, and we're trying to really reinforce this with our middle management too, to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that we don't have any issues, which we really don't have, but it does boil over, right? Every once in a while. I think that the work from home has really has lessened this. When it comes from a supervisor to an agent, you might have some stupid like Slack things that people say, right, that they take offense to. I will say this too, just kind of as a side note, we do limit conversations on Slack to really business and kind of event family driven things, right? So there's no politics, there's no religion, right? It's instantly shut down. You almost get banned from Slack if you do it. Like, we're not having these discussions. Local politics, if somebody's, that happens, right? Because we're kind of in a smaller town, right? Most of our reps are from the area. So when those kind of arise, we try to squash all that. So you just got to be able to manage that, right? And able to understand, again, the expectations and lay things out so you're not surprising people, right? And it doesn't seem like you're picking on them, right? If everything is kind of thought through ahead of time, you're going to think through everything. But for the most part, I think what issues are in your contact center, and to really, instead of just ignoring them and hope they never happen, take them head on, find out what you want to do with it, and then train it and educate it on it. And I think it kind of brings it to the forefront, and hopefully it makes it go away. So again, thank you guys. Thank you guys that have been hanging out here too in the comments. I appreciate you guys. I would love to see if it's possible, like any of you guys that listen to this on iTunes, Spotify, Google, like if you guys can post a couple more, we have amazing reviews. So I'd love to see that keep going. That just really allows the podcast to keep growing almost 150,000 downloads. So I love all you guys. Thank you guys so much. I think this is kind of the new way we're going to do it. So we'll just go live, and then I'll have the video, and you guys can watch the video. And then also, obviously we'll have this on all the podcast channels as well. So again, thank you guys very much. Have an awesome Friday. As I'm recording this, it is a Friday the 19th. So have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys next week.